How to come out of the dark, Isaiah 9:2. This morning, I'm going to talk to you about coming out of the dark. All of us are in the dark at some point in our life, and I wanted to talk to you and reflect on some of my thoughts in even my life coming out of the dark. Right? There's two types of people: those people that are in the dark, and those people that will be in the dark. Let's talk about how to come out of the dark. Isaiah 9:2. Eager to talk with you this morning. I really, really feel blessed with you this morning. Is energizing to start the show every morning. I've been doing it almost 3 years now, and Chad, I hope you're watching this morning. I know you're going to be watching this because you promulgate the recording and put it on iTunes and Spotify, and it's just a great, great thing. I know we're pushing 300. I'm looking forward to that 300 mark. It's just kind of a waypoint in my life to do this podcast, to do the show Wired Differently Experience. It's called the WDeX show. And this show is where I feel like I've been called to encourage you, inspire you, motivate you, right? Teach you some things, maybe remind you of some things that you once knew in your life to be a little more prominent than others. And I think that the test is working. I mean, we've been doing it a long time. We get lots of comments. We got slowly but surely followers growing. We have some standouts out there that are constantly commenting, encouraging me. And today's topic is, most of you understand that you're listening. Today's topic is based on Isaiah 9:2. Isaiah 9:2, and Isaiah 9:2 is an Old Testament verse. And what I do is I have thoughts in my mind, things that I go to bed with, things I'm stewing about, because I'm constantly thinking about you, my employees, my followers, this show. I mean, it's kind of like I live in this world of speeches. I took a couple speech coaching lessons several years ago from a man by the name of Del Toro McNeil, and he is an accomplished speaker in the Hall of Fame. He's an incredible individual, but one of the things he had taught me that has stuck with me over the years is that what your craft is what you do. And if you're a baseball pitcher, you pitch. If you're a teacher, you teach. If you're a donut maker, you make donuts. If you're these things, you do these things. And he looked at the whole crowd once and he said, speakers speak. Speakers speak. And that's kind of how the genesis of this show started back in 2020. I wasn't really getting a lot of gigs. Not many people were getting many speaking gigs because of the COVID. And I thought, well, I wanted to stay fresh. I wanted to stay in a speaking mindset because speakers speak. And how could I hone in my speaking skill if I wasn't speaking on stage or doing some of the things that needed to be done? I'd spent quite a bit of money on coaching and learning this industry. And it's like, oh, what am I going to do? So I started this podcast, and here we are since 2020. We're here at almost 2024, pushing 2025, and we're still speaking. And so it just seems that this is my, I guess, somewhat of a comfort zone. Now, I'm not always comfortable when I speak every morning. I tell you, like, even this morning, I was a little uncomfortable, even though speakers speak, right? I always take what Bible verse has been given me, for the most part. Always is a big word. And then I lay it over something that's been heavy on my heart or what God's put together. And then I create this merge of what's going on in my life and what I think people need to hear. And then I really stay disciplined on what God gives me in this pattern of messages from the Bible app. And so today's verse that came up was Isaiah 9:2. In Isaiah 9:2, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned, right? And I'm like, anytime the Old Testament comes up, I'm like, oh, is anybody like that? I mean, like, is anybody if you're on a kind of a regimen of studying verses or a Bible app or some type of study, um, this might happen to you. And if you're on the Bible app, I just don't get excited about the Old Testament because I'm not comfortable with it. I think the Old Testament requires more discipline. It requires more back knowledge. So when I have to go into the Old Testament to study and figure out what is God bringing to me, I have to study a little more than probably the New Testament because I'm in the New Testament. I live in the New Testament. I love the New Testament. Christ gave us the New Testament because that's him and that's the new world order, if you will. We talked a little bit about that yesterday with Hulk Hogan and new world order, but the Old Testament really, you can't have the New Testament without the Old Testament. And today, as I read this verse, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. So I thought I would just talk to you about, man, darkness and being in darkness, because even though the Old Testament is the Old Testament, we still can learn from it. We still need to learn from it. We need to understand that from the beginning of time, from the biblical times, people were experiencing darkness. And Isaiah is a prophet that brought us this verse. Isaiah was writing to his people. You see, the Israel nation, again, we talk about Israel, I have admiration for Israel. I mean, it's somewhat divisive, the Israel nation. But Israel brought us Christ, and Christ is the New Testament. The Old Testament, through Israel, prophesied about the coming of the Messiah. So the Old Testament was always talking about Christ coming or the Messiah coming, but the Old Testament didn't have Christ in it. And Isaiah is one of the prophets that was foreknowledging this idea of the Messiah coming. Now, not unlike Israel now, Israel was always in trouble. They were not obeying God. They didn't have structure. They didn't have, I mean, they had structure, but they didn't have Christ. They didn't have this freedom to choose Christ and to change your life and to do these certain things that we are allowed to have everybody come a part of this belief structure. The Israel nation only believed that the Jewish nation was going to heaven. And at that point, I believe if I understand the Old Testament, those were the people that would be ascending to heaven, the Israel people. And that was the belief structure. So when I think about people walking in darkness, I mean, I really can't but help but think about the entire Israel nation. Now, I know this might be hard for some people to hear this belief structure the way I see it. And certainly go study on your own. Go look in the Old Testament, study some of the backstories. But the truth of the matter is, the bulk of the world was an Israel nation, and it has continued to shrink over time. Israel would lose its territory, and then God would bring them back, and they'd lose some of the territory, and then God would bring them back. And at this particular time, Isaiah is talking about the darkness, right? And this is the part where Israel is starting to come back. Isaiah is prophesying that the country is coming back. The Assyrian nation is starting to leave, and they're starting to get their control back. And Isaiah is predicting that the Messiah will come one day and pull us out of the darkness. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. So there is people that were miserable, that were Jewish people that were coming back out of the Assyrian nation captivity. And there's people that weren't in happiness, were not in of wealth. They were people that were in slavery and bondage. There was a lot of miserable people back in the day. I mean, come on, they didn't have TV. I mean, what are you going to do all day, right? You got to have something to do. You got to have something to write about. You have something to deal with. And it was always this back and forth. And so, really, what I wanted to talk to you about was this darkness. And when I read this in Isaiah 9:2, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. This is Isaiah saying, Christ, the Messiah, will come and ultimately bring all this darkness out of this turmoil that we're having in this Israel nation. And he doubles down by saying, this is on those even living in the land in deep darkness. Those that are you in the land of deep darkness, those that are living in maybe depression, that you are miserable, even deep darkness, a light will even be dawned on you. So not only the land in darkness will be relieved, but those people that I think that may be sick or mental or depressed will be relieved, because this great light of Jesus Christ will be coming, called the Messiah at that time. So I was thinking about, this whole situation of the Jewish thought process and my thought process. I'm going to give you three pieces of coming out of your personal darkness today at the end of this. I really want you to stick around for that, because I think the darkness that we're experiencing right now as followers and listeners of me right now are more than likely mental or difficult times, or things that Christ is even talking about in Isaiah's times and talking about now. But I want to give you a little history. Isaiah was writing as a prophet for 40 years, bringing this people out of this Assyrian nation into the light of the coming of the prophecy of the Messiah and the building on the Jewish faith. Now, the thing that really kind of bothers me, or I find very interesting about this, and even mostly the Old Testament, is I feel like the Old Testament Jewish faith, or even the Jewish people right now, I've spent time with great Jewish people, and I have had many intimate relationships with Jewish people. And every Jewish person is prepared to be converted from me or hear about Christ. And it's not like the first time they've ever heard it. So what you need to understand is the Jewish faith in this world right now still believes that the Messiah is coming to save them. Okay? The Jewish nation, the Jewish faith, the Jewish belief culture believes that the Messiah has not came, and they're still waiting on him to come. The Old Testament Isaiah says that the Messiah is coming, and that Jesus Christ, in fact, fulfilled all the prophecies of Isaiah and the other prophets. So we as Christians believe that the Messiah has come, and that Messiah was Jesus Christ, the most famous, most influential historical character ever walked the planet. There is proof, there is no doubt that Christ walked on this planet. Like, it was before photos. I mean, I was kind of also thinking, like, did the world even exist before videos and photos? I mean, how can we prove anything? We really can't, other than writings. And so the historical facts and the writings and the scrolls and all the things, in fact, Jesus was here. In fact, these things were wrote on multiple occasions. The miracles and the history of Jesus Christ, the prophecy was fulfilled. And here's how we are at. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. Jesus did in fact come. The Old Testament has moved to the New Testament. Those that don't believe Christ exists are non-believers. Those that are Jewish that don't believe the Messiah has come are Jewish people that were organized under God on purpose to be delivered by the Messiah coming. The Jewish people in this world right now don't believe that Messiah has come, nor that Jesus was the Messiah, but he was another great prophet, maybe along the lines of Isaiah. So I just like, some people in your life that see things is so clear, but they can't see, they're blind. They can't see the light. They're in darkness for some reason. And I'm in darkness a lot in my life. I mean, it's not that I'm special or not special, or you're not unspecial, or we're special together. It's just that, like, I want you to reconcile yourself with this Jewish faith and the people that are in dark. And the very prophet Isaiah is saying, you Jewish people, shaking them up. Like the Messiah is coming. He's coming. He's coming. He will deliver you from the darkness. But they don't. They want to choose to be blind and not see that the Messiah has come or is coming, or the The signs were there. They didn't want to recognize, many of them didn't want to recognize the miracles. They just, for some reason, didn't want this Messiah, Christ, to be their Messiah. And the reason I believe for that is that this Messiah, Jesus Christ, who we're going to talk about as the light, came back for everybody. And I've been on this show a lot, and I hark on this. I really want you to understand that the, the most prominent liberals to ever walk the planet are Jesus Christ and Abraham Lincoln. You can write this down. The most prominent, in my mind, I'm sure there's been other liberals in this fact that when we're talking political and politics, and you can't separate it because that's just the world that we live in, certainly here in America. And here's the deal. The first great liberal emancipator accepting everybody to heaven was Jesus Christ. And that was the cut point with the Jewish people. This cannot be our Messiah that the prophets are calling for, because he's saying the Romans, the Gentiles, the Samaritans, the pagans, all can actually just accept Jesus Christ into their heart and they will go to heaven. So this Jesus came for everybody, and we wanted him just to come for us. And it got me thinking, like, how blind can you be? How selfish can you be? How narrow-minded can you be in some things? And I don't think it's that hard when you think about it. I was flying on a plane. I go back and forth every week. I am really putting on some miles. Man, am I a big deal. I am so tired of it. But this particular flight, this coming home to Florida this week was interesting to me, because I downloaded a movie I thought I could watch for the 2 hours I'm flying on a airline that's I'll just say it, Allegiant. It's not a very expensive airline. We have some miles to burn, so I'm burning them for the company, and it's much more efficient. Right now, everything really adds up with what we're going through and our reconstruction of our life from this hurricane and new business ventures. So anyway, so I'm flying Allegiant, and I'm getting on. I can't. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no TV. There's not even a magazine. I had prepared to watch a movie on my iPhone. Well, for some reason, my library wouldn't load and I couldn't watch the movie. So I'm stuck 2.5 hours on Allegiant with nothing, like nothing. My brain is like was sizzling, nothing. So I finally pull up solitaire, and I play solitaire for like 2 hours. Like it's maddening, right? But this move of blindness in solitaire, I don't know if anybody ever plays solitaire. You can play solitaire and you can look at it and make your moves. And a lot of the moves are really, really easy. But when you get down to the end, you got to kind of like move some cards to another place to free up a card, to move it over to the bank. And if you can't get it in there, you really got to have some strategy. But there always comes this point in solitaire where you look at the cards and the aces are there and everything's ready to go, and you got about 5 cards in the deck that you're flipping around to see where you can move them, and you flip. And you feel like, I'm stumped. There's no moves left. I'm going to start the game over. But then you don't want to start the game over because you're like, you lose or you're quitting on something, right? Inevitably, man. On my phone, I'm playing this game and I'll stare at it. And I just will not. I don't want to quit. I don't want to hit redeal. I don't want to hit new deal. I want to just like think. There's got to be a move here. And you can stare at it, and you can stare at it. And my wife's really good at solitaire. She kicks my ass at solitaire and all these games on the planes. I'm just going to say it right now. I don't like it. I try to compete with her, but she's really, really good. She's a much more cerebral person than me. Let's get it out there. I digress. So I'm playing solitaire. She's not with me. So there's really just me against me. And I'm looking at, like, there's got to be. I can't see anything. And then finally, the timer kind of goes off in the solitary game, and a card starts to come and go in and out. Like, oh, look at that card. And I look at that card, and it's the 8 of clubs. And it's sitting up there. And there is a 7 of hearts down there on the rack. How did I not see such a basic move? I mean, I stared at that deck. I stared at the scroll. I looked at it for it seemed like an hour, right? And finally it's like, you dummy, move the seven below the eight of clubs. And it's there and it's shouting at me like, who doesn't see this move? Well, I was looking for the complicated move. I was looking for the move that would have to move this one over to free this one up so I can move it over here. So then that one would be free. And then I could put it on the ace and I would keep the game alive. But no, the most basic move of all was clearly take the seven of hearts and put it on the eight of clubs. And it's sitting right there. And you stared at it and you stared at it and you never saw the most basic easy move in the entire game. Do you know what I'm saying? The same thing happens to me when I go to the refrigerator and Tracy says, would you get the blue cheese out of the refrigerator? Because we got all these wings hot over here. And I stare at that refrigerator. I stare and I stare and I stare. I'm like, I don't see any damn blue cheese. I'm telling you, there's no blue cheese in here. And I don't want to say anything to her because I know how this is going to play out. And I'm staring and staring and staring and staring and staring. And I'm finally like, man, I don't see blue cheese. And I do not want to ask because I know she's going to walk right over here. She's going to grab it. And I stare. And finally I say, baby, I think we're out of blue cheese. She says, I just bought some yesterday. Walmart brought it. I said, baby, I don't see the blue cheese. Please don't get mad at me. She says, hang on a minute. So she walks over there, literally comes right into the refrigerator, grabs it out of the side console and puts it on the counter and says, right here's the blue cheese, baby. And then she walks off. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. The Jewish people are still staring in the refrigerator. Watch this. The Jewish faith, the Jewish people are in a perpetual game of solitaire, waiting and looking for something that is already there. Isaiah warned the Jewish people of this. The Assyrian nation is going away. I'm bringing back your kingdom, and let's get after it. The Messiah is coming. That's the historical side behind Isaiah 9:2 in the Old Testament. And trust me, I am not trying to pick a fight with any Israel people or any Jewish people. They are God's chosen nation. And God, I'm not trying to pick a fight, man. I'm really just telling the story you gave me. I believe that many Jewish people are in the darkness still, and the light hasn't been delivered to them. I just called it the Jewish blindness. I called it the solitary blindness. I called it the refrigerator blindness. For 40 years, Isaiah said, get out of the dark. So I just wanted to speak to some of us that are in the dark. I wanted to speak to you about the 3 ways of getting out of the dark, but I also want you to understand that when we talk about Isaiah 9:2, we are talking literally about Jesus Christ coming to this earth and lighting up this world. I mean, just think about it. The Jewish faith, I looked this up a little bit, and this is just so we understand the difference of the New Testament and the Old Testament, right? The Jewish faith, the Jewish law, there was really no way to become a Christian because Christians were not created then. And we know how to become a Christian. We know how to end up in heaven with Jesus Christ upon our death. This is to accept Jesus Christ into our heart with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. The Jewish faith didn't have any way to really denounce sin other than to kill chickens and goats and give sacrifices. And it was a full-time business, removing sin by going to the high priest and sacrificing animals for your sins. Craziness when you think about it. But the Jewish faith never really had a way to take a non-believer or a pagan and say, hey, come on in and become part of this club. You really had to be born in it. Now, there was actions, and I looked this up a little bit. In ancient times, the process of converting to Judaism, though possible, was not as structured as it possibly is today. Conversion required a sincere commitment to the Jewish faith. One Jewish belief system might have been if it's prospecting of how you maybe became a Jewish person. Learning acknowledgement, the individual would have to learn about Jewish beliefs, practice the laws, understand commitment to a lifestyle, change and involve becoming changes involved in becoming Jewish was crucial. I mean, you just had to start acting and moving and honoring the Sabbath and living a certain way and eating a certain way. And I I don't know there was a conversion. The other piece, if you were a man, you had to be circumcised. I think most of us know what that circumcision is all about, right? But if you're a woman, good luck with that. The makava was a ritual of immersion. The convert would participate in a ritual bath known as the makava, symbolizing spiritual purification. And number four, acceptance of the mitzvot. The individual would need to accept the yoke of the commitments and express a willingness to live according to the Jewish life. Community acceptance. The convert would need to become a part of the Jewish community, which would involve acceptance of recognizing a rabbinic authority of the broader community, that they were sincere in their conversion. Historically, the exact process could vary. So there's no conversion. There's no matter of the heart, soul, or mind in that regard. It was all about action. So what I want to talk to you this morning in closing here is we got this to wrap this up. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has drawn. This is Isaiah calling forward the emancipation of the Jewish people and the setting free, coming out of the darkness and living their life in accordance with Jesus Christ. Now, I am not a biblical scholar. I've studied very much on this morning and things in the past, and I'm putting together common sense things that I believe are true. And I think that these are things that are very true and very close to being a version of something you've probably heard. And I would encourage you to look into the whole conversion, Jesus Christ, the Messiah, and all that. I know some of us are newer believers than others, but you are in darkness at some point in your life, whether it's not with Christ in your life, enacting Christ into your life and bringing the light of Jesus Christ into your life, or you're just miserable and depressed, you're in darkness. Generally, those two things are hand in hand. Now, that's not completely true, because I am a believer and I have been miserable. I have been depressed. I have been in the dark, even though I do have Christ in my life. So I wanted to give you 3 things to pull yourself out of the darkness. The people walking a great life. But I want you to understand the only way to truly pull yourself out of the darkness, to set up this 3 pieces of pulling yourself out of the darkness, is to first and foremost acknowledge, unlike the Jewish faith and culture has not done, that Jesus Christ is in fact the Messiah. I need you to ask Jesus Christ in your heart. I need you to repent. I need you to say, Jesus Christ, I love you with all heart, soul, and mind, and strength. Please come into my life. Please come into my heart. Remove this darkness in my life. Remove this blindness that you are the only way to happiness, to life after, and to the kingdom. That's the number one thing we have to acknowledge to come out of the darkness. Once we're out of the darkness, once we've accepted those things, once we've faced the fact that Isaiah was right, that the Messiah was coming, and the Messiah is Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, and we're done looking at the solitary screen, and we realize that there is a move, and that move is Jesus Christ. When we're done looking in the refrigerator and we say, aha! There's Jesus in the blue cheese box, right? Like, aha, that's the light. Aha, there's the move of the 8 of clubs or the 7 of hearts. Aha, Jesus is the light. The Assyrian nation is gone. We are back, Israel. The prophets have called for the Messiah. Isaiah said it will be. The light is Jesus Christ. That is your number one move. Now, the 3 ways to come out of the darkness, if you're in darkness and not feeling well in this world, is 1, 2, and 3. I want you to dig, I want you to gather, and I want you to take action. So, number one, once we've accepted Christ into our heart in this process, I want you to promulgate these three moves in your life. Number one, cultivate gratitude. That means dig. Cultivate means dig, prepare the land, cultivate gratitude. We all know what gratitude is: gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. A lot of people do gratitude journals. I do not. I used to do some of it, and I think it's a very good thing. But if you're not doing gratitude journals, you got to take notes in your phone. You got to say you're grateful for this, prepare your lesson. Be purposeful. I want you to cultivate gratitude. I want you to be purposeful. You have to cultivate gratitude. If you're in darkness, if you're not in darkness, it's not, you don't really need to cultivate gratitude because you're living in gratitude. So you need to work a little harder at gratitude when you're in darkness. So I want you to cultivate gratitude. I want you to think about what's good in your life. I want you to work at it. I need you to work at cultivating gratitude. Man, I know my houses were racked up in this hurricane. But now that I think about it, in 5 years, if everything goes the way planned, I will actually possibly be in a better position after this rebuild and we acquire the cash to do the things that we need to do, and we put the new spreadsheet together and we put the rental program together, we're going to have more equity, we're going to have more gains, and by the time we're 70 or this or that, I mean, we have to cultivate, we have to work at the gratitude because we are in somewhat of a darkness. Number one is cultivate gratitude. I'm saying dig, dig, dig. You got to look for the gratitude, you got to work at the gratitude. And number two, I want you to gather. Mindfulness and reflection is gathering. You know, honey, remember 20 years ago when we had that situation when uh, someone took $500,000 from us and I was an idiot and missed it? Look where we are now. You know, when that happened, when that theft happened, it forced us to hunker down in other areas and it forced me to take different risks in different directions and different moves and create a different type of payroll company, which is way worth more than $500,000. I don't know if I would have made that move if this person, these two people, wouldn't have absconded with a collection of $500,000, right? I need you to gather. I need you to be mindfulness and reflect on the things that have worked out in your life because God has taken you through 'em. And some of us really can't associate a lot of things with God because they're new believers, but there are things in your life that have worked out even before God. I would assume some things, maybe you had a scratch off ticket hit for 25 bucks. I mean, there's things in life that just happen from being a purveyor of truth and goodness and hard work and not giving up. For mindfulness and reflection is very, very important in our life. And number three, I want you to take action, and that is acts of kindness. Now, number one, cultivate gratitude is digging. Number two is mindfulness and reflection, and that is gathering. And now, number three, acts of kindness is taking action. You can do all three of these this morning. And when you're done with the first two, I want you to go look for something to be good. Go tip somebody. Go give someone good advice. Hey, give me a good shout out on this show. Act of kindness, right? That is how we're going to pull ourselves out of our own darkness. Listen, this wasn't actually a great show today, and I'm very, very happy with it. And I didn't really know where it was going to go, but listen, I know when you're playing solitary now, or you're looking in the refrigerator and you're stumped, you're going to be thinking about the light is there. The light will come. Do not be so narrow minded. Let your mind open. The light will come in and you will grow. God bless you guys. What a great show this morning. Today's Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thursday. Tomorrow is a travel day. I'm going to probably maybe get up early and do a show, but if not, we'll definitely Chad will run another show that we've done in the past and we'll have a great day. But things are really looking up for me. I'm coming out of my own darkness. I'm grateful that Christ is in my life. I'm grateful that he is a provider of all things that are needed, right? We talked about that yesterday. God bless you guys. Thank you for supporting me. And, you know, believing in me, and obviously that we put God first in our life. And I just can't wait for you to be playing solitaire and think about this speech one day.